my voice is like a silken, like silky smooth, sexy.
It's like silk boxers.
Very masculine, low tone.
Wow.
And yours is really high and it cuts through and and so I think like that contrast. Welcome to Backtracking, the show where two old friends take a second listen to influential bands' catalogs, track by track. I am J. William Hall.
And I'm Dan Fiden. We'll be taking this journey together, providing context both historical and personal on some legendary bands. For our second season, we have selected none other than Mark Eitzel and American Music Club. J. William Hall, we're back once again.
Indeed.
Episode 46. Can you believe it? We are on episode 46. They don't make television with seasons this long. It used to be back in the olden days. I'm sure you remember. I believe that all television, each episode was 22 episodes. And there was some reason for that related to each season.
Yeah.
And
yes.
I think it had to do with like syndication. And then it was like, as that became less of a thing, they do it less and less. Now it's like you get these shows like 10 episodes, 6 episodes in a season. We are going the other direction. We're doing 50 episode seasons.
Right. Well, we're going for syndication. We want this podcast to be played in perpetuity on all of the sort of like low rent podcast channels out there that just are going to start popping up and just rerunning old content.
Yeah.
Right.
You flip over to UHF instead of VHF, right?
Yeah. Like you're adjusting the antenna. Someone's got to hold it. You turn the channel to get in there, and it's like some weird black and white. That's what this podcast aims to be, and we can only get there if we've got enough episodes because they buy them in bulk. They
do. Yeah, they want volume, and you know what? Sheer volume.
That's right.
I actually believe there was a your one of your many musical projects.
Yes.
There was a well-known song called Sheer Volume.
It was one of the hits from this particular project, and I don't want to give too much away, but there's
because you don't want people to get on the interview. You don't want people to get on the internet and track it down.
Well, you can't find that song Sheer Volume on the internet yet.
Yes,
but
really.
We are in talks with our label about putting together an archival, like the early days, the garage days kind of release, and that's the era that Sheer Volume is from.
Yeah.
And
now, Sheer Volume, could you tell us a little bit more about the background on Sheer Volume? Maybe you can just quickly, for people just to, kind of tantalize them. Tell us about the musical kind of vibe, the lyrical content, some of the best performances in there. Just give us a quick backtrack.
It's a surprisingly smooth sounding performance from a proudly ragtag group of teenage friends growing up in a small town in the boondocks east of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And we would get together and jam and make up songs. And so we were teenage boys, and so there was a healthy percentage of our songs that were about topics that would be considered untoward or
edgy. They were a little edgy.
Sometimes a little gross, gross teenage boys, whatever.
Yeah.
And this particular song is about a horrendous diarrhea episode that happened to its singer and protagonist. The song's called Sheer Volume. Hey, listeners, wait for it. It'll be out sometime. I'm not going to tell you who the band is, but you'll figure it out because it's going to be a smash worldwide hit.
Well, we look forward to that. I know that our listeners are hardcore fans of music. They like to go deep. That's why they're listening to episode 46 of a season about American Music Club and Mark Eitzel, so I have no doubt that they're going to dig deep into sheer volume as soon as they can find it.
Right. Just keep Googling it. Just keep on Googling.
Yeah. So, J. William Hall, can you believe that it's time for us to cover Mark Eitzel's last, or latest, I should say. Don't know if it's his last. Let's hope it is not his last. Solo effort, Hey, Mr. Ferryman.
Yeah, you reminded me of this as we were talking business before the episode officially kicked off, and you reminded me that this was the last to date Mark Eitzel solo release. Yeah, and I was shocked. I tell you, to hear this.
I know.
I look forward to the next one.
Well, I hope that it's coming out soon. We'll have to decide if it does come out, if one ever does come out, whether we're going to have to do an addendum to the season for completeness sake.
I think we have to, but, we're going to have to make sure that the syndicators know that an additional episode has now been added, so that they don't confuse the future. I'm thinking of the future generation.
It's true.
The people of the future.
It's true. So I want to get into a little bit of housekeeping, J. William Hall. It's not a long housekeeping. It's a short housekeeping. But we're just redding up a little.
We're just redding up a little bit. That's how we say it. We're just redding up a little bit. Yeah.
That's a Pittsburgh turn of phrase. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean like getting ready?
I guess so, but it's just kind of like picking things up, redding up the room. You're just cleaning things up a little bit, making it look a little nicer, but not going into a deep clean.
But you don't know the etymology of that. That's not like some kind of a weird truncation of getting it ready, or is it readying up the room?
You're readying up the room. Readying up the room.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna read up the housekeeping here real quick, as the Pittsburghers say. The first thing I want to address is at the end of the last episode, we were discussing that we would be covering the Eitzel collection of demos called Glory in this episode.
Yes.
And it was not until this was us falling down on the job a little bit. It's not until after that discussion, when we started to try and dig into it, that we both realized neither of us had access to this collection of demos. We could not find it. We could not listen to it. It is not on the Bandcamp. It seems to have mostly disappeared from easy accessibility anyway. Now, I have no doubt there are listeners out there who have a copy of this. We would love to hear it, but we're going to bypass it.
Well, we're going to bypass it for this episode, but I will have I have ordered it, I think, from the Decor Records website.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that a CD is en route, but it's got to come overseas. It's going to take a while, and our postal service has not gotten better in recent years. So I hope to see it, but I don't know when it'll get here. We're on a schedule, as you say in Great Britain, and so we've got to plow forward. So here we are. We're going right to
Hey, Mr. Ferryman. We decided that that's what we needed to cover. But because there was this little hiccup, and because we're kind of in this no man's land of, having to cover the last couple of releases, and there's a bunch of live stuff and a bunch of demos, here's what we've decided for the remainder of this season. I'm going to lay it out for you now so you can plan around it. If you need to ask for days off to listen, put in that request now. Put in, count up your PTO.
Get on your Google Calendar.
Yeah.
Drag the bar for however many days you need to block off.
Inaccessible. Don't schedule me because I'm going to be busy. You want to make sure to toggle that. Don't let somebody just schedule some.
Make sure for your work email you put the away message. You set your away message.
That's right.
You say, I'm unavailable for this amount of time. Don't ask me any more fucking questions.
That's right. That's right. I'm not interested. Tell your boss, no one-on-ones this week. I don't want any A's. I don't want any O's. Okay?
At the end of your message, you type sincerely, comma.
That's right. So here's what we're going to do. Hey, Mr. Ferryman, we are undoubtedly going to take 2 episodes to cover this. We always do. So this will be, Hey, Mr. Ferryman is going to be 2 episodes. Then we're going to swap back over to the final studio American Music Club album, The Golden Age. And we are going to cover that album in 2 episodes.
Which, in a moment of weakness, I allowed Dan to convince me that we needed to save it for the end of the season. And then guess what happened? I started hearing re-recordings.
I know.
Eitzel solo re-recordings of songs that were originally on the Golden Age, and I didn't have the context, the background to speak intelligently about them. So I look like a fool.
Well, listen, I just think that we're innovating here. We are disrupting podcasting and American Music Club fandom every day. We're not going to always get it right, but we're going to do it, and we're going to do it fast, and we're going to do it hard, and we're going to do it right to your face. Okay?
Icy cold, no mistakes.
So we're going to do the Golden Age. Then we're going to move on, and we are going to do 1 to 2 episodes on ephemera. There are a number of live albums we haven't tackled, and there are lots and lots of B-sides, EPs, solo albums from people like Danny Pearson that we want, and we're some other band, like Clodhopper, we're going to try and cover. We're going to cover all of that stuff. We are not going to cover it in excruciating detail, but we're going to give it a listen. We're going to cover it quickly so that at least we can kind of put the entire picture together. And so I expect that to be 2 episodes based on what we're saying, possibly 3. I doubt it'll be 1, but probably 2 episodes.
I'm thinking 1 to 2, maybe 1.5.
1 to 2 episodes. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the finale. The finale will be a single episode. It will be the Tournament of Champions. That will be the primary topic. We'll go over that, and we're also going to reveal the plan for season 3 of Backtracking so that you can spend your holiday season writing on a list to Santa saying, Dear Santa, I've been good this year. All I want is to listen to every episode of Backtracking as quickly as possible after it releases. So I want, a good internet connection, maybe some new headphones. That's it.
Also,
what else do you need?
A 3rd season will help with syndication. It'll ensure that we can reach the numbers that we need in order to sell big to the syndicators and, be played in perpetuity.
Yeah, agreed. So that is the entirety of our housekeeping. That's everything that we're going to cover today. Hopefully this schedule is going to work for all of you out there. So, J. William Hall.
Yeah.
It is time. Hey, Mr. Ferryman, I want to go over a few of the basics up front. So the label for this one, same label as we had on Don't Be a Stranger, Merge Records in the U.S., Decor in the UK.
Yeah.
This album was released on January 27th, 2017. So really not too long ago. We're in what? We're in 2025. So that's just 8 years ago.
Less than 10 years ago.
That's right.
Less than the last 10 years.
That's right.
If you catch my joke, I'm just making here.
You're full of jokes. So the runtime on this album is a nice 50 minutes and 1 second.
It's a little bit long for one side of a 90-minute cassette, unfortunately.
It's true. It's true. You may have to record that. What was there was like SP, EP, and like SVP or something. Remember this? Like those tapes. There were multiple settings that you could use, right? But I don't remember what they were. It was SP and EP for sure, right?
Yeah, something like that. And I don't know. I don't know if it was real or if it was bunk,
No, I think it basically made the tape run slower or faster. So like you'd get higher quality audio on one of the settings, but just less time. And then the other one was like, really shitty audio, but you could fit like 2 full albums on it. It was something like that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, you'd have to choose if you want it on a single cassette, or a single side of a cassette, which is really what we all want, right? The ideal cassette management solution was to, when you were bootlegging a band's catalog, right, off of vinyl or whatever, and putting it on cassette, you'd want to get a full album on one side, and then on the flip side, you'd put like the next album in their catalog. Is that how you did it? That's how I did it.
Oh, yes, of course. You can't. How could you do it any other way? You got to have 2 albums per cassette, and they've got to be chronologically make sense.
Yeah, that's right. And then you'd take some time to try and do some really great kind of put all the track listings on there, but you'd maybe decorate it in a way that was apropos for the band and something like that, right?
Absolutely. That was, advanced studies probably, but still, like, you started making your own little artwork for your mixtapes and stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. So, 50 minutes and 1 second, it is time for us to dig into the cover.
Well, I want to say something about Merge Records, because I don't think we really talked about them at in depth in the last episode.
Okay.
Did we?
I feel like we've. Yeah, go ahead. We did talk
anyway,
about it a little bit.
I just want to say that, like, I was looking at their roster.
Yeah.
From especially from this era, like they're founded by the members of Superchunk, and that was kind of like the first or one of the early big bands to come out on Merge, which is at Durham, North Carolina, label, but there were some really cool. It was just a very cool label, like the bands and the music that it was putting out. During this era, Spoon, Lamb Chop, Neutral Milk Hotel, East River Pipe, Archers of Loaf, Spinanes. It just goes on. And so for Eitzel to be on this label, I think is in the U.S. is really cool. Like, I don't know anything about Decor in the UK, whether they really. I think we talked about them, but my impression was that they were kind of Eitzel focused.
Well, they were. I think what we saw was that, and we did cover this in the last episode, or the 2 episodes ago, I guess. They are both a management company and a booking agency and a label, and it appears as though they're primarily focused on kind of ex-singer-songwriters from post-punk bands.
Okay, that's right.
Right.
But definitely,
I can't remember some of the other ones, but small.
It felt very niche kind of label for the UK, but Merge is kind of like a big indie in the US, so I just it feels like, because we've covered some of his albums that have been self-released, and that he hasn't had like a sizable label behind him, like I think Merge is if not sizable. As big as whoever for AMC in the 90s, but what, I'm just trying to set the stage here and say Merge that this album
Merge is a big indie and a well-respected indie.
Yes.
Yeah. Well said. Jay William.
Perfect summation.
Yeah. So now I want to get into the cover, because this is what Michael pays for. Okay, we are going to cover the cover. Courtesy of Michael, sponsored by Michael, brought to you by Michael. This cover, J. William Hall, was created by someone named Mark Holthusen. Now,
yes.
Mark Holthusen, he also did the cover for the Golden Age.
Yes.
And we'll cover that, obviously, in 2 episodes from now. But it is, in my opinion, this is kind of a departure for Eitzel and AMC. It's more conceptual, I think, maybe conceptual is the wrong word, but it's more kind of designerly and conceptual than I think that the really what I would consider kind of two major categories of AMC and Eitzel covers. There is the lonely landscape photo that is, relatively untreated. It's just, it is what it is. That's the kind of,
Yeah.
the atmospheric
California, Restless Stranger. Yeah.
60 watt silver lining I'd put in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of them. And then there is the Everclear, the painted covers. So
Right.
you got Love Songs for Patriots, you've got California, or not California, you've got San Francisco, Everclear, right? So there's that category. This is different than either of them.
Right.
But I have to say, I love it. Do you want to describe kind of what your interpretation of this cover was?
Yeah, so it's kind of a combination of it's like a photo of Eitzel, but it's sort of his profile, and it's been covered with a texture that looks kind of like a close-up of marble or soapstone or something. And then it's got what look like tree roots coming out the bottom, and it looks like a crown of pine trees or something.
Yeah.
On the top. It's hard to tell if that's exactly what it is. I'm looking at an online version as well. I don't know if if you're holding the vinyl, then maybe it's really clear. But is that what you're catching here?
Yeah, exactly. And maybe to ground this for people who don't have access to look at this photo right now, I'm sure you all love Disney as much as J. William Hall does. And so one of the things you do when you go to Disney World, maybe with the kids, is they have the silhouette artists, right? Who will kind of cut out the old style kind of 1700s silhouette pre-photography, where they'd cut out some black, just your silhouette. And it is like that. It looks to me, well, what I thought it was, I'm not certain that this is the case, but it's Eitzel's silhouette. Behind the silhouette, it looks like, rather than it just being black, it looks like it's a photo of pine, almost like a photo of similar to what's on the cover of Klamath. So kind of a lot of pine trees, and then maybe some, water or something in the midground, and then there's the bottom part of it. But in the silhouette, it isn't just Eitzel's silhouette. As Jay Williams said, it looks like there are kind of pine trees on the top of his head, like a crown, and then kind of at his, chest level or so, it looks like there are tree roots kind of growing down. I really like this cover. It's different, as I said, than anything he's done in the past, but I really like it, and I love the title of the album. I think the title of the album is terrific.
Yeah, I agree on all counts. It's kind of a stark cover, but it's an unusual image, and it makes you kind of look at it. And I think it's Hey, Mr. Ferryman's an evocative title. It immediately conjures the river Styx, and and we know that, so we're coming off of his last studio, what would be considered like a official studio album, was kind of a death obsessed or death haunted affair. It felt that way because he had the heart attack, and so I think, Hey, Mr. Ferryman, when I see that title, it sort of evokes that to me, like that kind of thinking about death.
Yeah.
And combined with this image, I'm not sure what the overall message is, but it's unusual and interesting looking. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would give this title, I think this is kind of, for me, 8 to 9 out of 10. I really, really like it. I think probably my only quibble with it is, as I've said in the past, I like my 10 out of 10. What would be required for that is for a band to have a consistent aesthetic approach to all of their titles throughout the entire catalog. Now, you have asserted that you think that is an unrealistic expectation, but that's why it's 10 out of 10, right? It's rare, exceedingly rare.
I don't. You would have to almost plan for it. You know what I mean?
You'd have to plan for it.
From the first release, it would be like, this is the aesthetic. Boom.
Yeah.
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 And I just think that that's a hard thing for many bands or musicians to know or to hold, that I'm going to like this for the rest of my life,
But as I know that you're a huge fan of the Olympics. As in the Olympics, they don't give the gymnast on the pommel horse a 10. It's hard. You bet your ass it's hard. Getting a 9 is hard, right? You save the 10 for perfection.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
Okay. Well,
that's my philosophy. I'm not grading on a fucking curve here, guy.
I was going to give it an 8 as well.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we're in the same ballpark then. All right. So let's move on. This is one of my most favorite parts of the episode, especially for this album. We're going to talk about the overall, the production, the arrangements, the band, the aesthetic, just our overall impression of how we liked this album, what we thought about it. We've got to start that conversation, J. William Hall.
Yeah.
With a discussion of the producer. It is Bernard Butler.
Right.
Well-known producer, well-known guitarist, perhaps best known as a member of the band Suede. I wanted to ask you, J. William, are you a Suede fan? Tell me about your relationship with that band.
Suede is one of those bands that came out in the 90s. They were sort of lumped in with the Britpop wave of bands, even though I would argue that their sound is not precisely like either Blur or Oasis, but they, guitar-based band coming out at the same time.
Now,
honestly,
can we pause that for 1 second? Because I want to get a sense from you where you kind of like where Britpop sits for you. Clearly, Blur and Oasis fit into that category. But you may we're both fans of the band Verve. I think you're a fan of especially the early Verve records.
Yeah. The first two albums.
Yeah, Verve, but I think is frequently considered part of that scene, but I wouldn't really consider their music being substantially similar to either Blur or Oasis. Auteurs is a band that I liked quite a bit during that time. I would say probably more Britpoppy, but almost like a prog approach. So there are a lot of these bands floating around in that category. I mean, do you think it's even a useful genre to kind of bucket, or like where does Suede sit in all that? Like, just tell us. Everyone wants to know your opinion on Britpop and where the border is.
Listen, I think it's an interesting thing that Britpop happened, and it was so powerful a force in popular culture in Britain, but over here, it wasn't really a thing, right? Like,
it was not as much of a thing.
And we probably, if you were following music stuff, it was like Blur versus Oasis. And of course, I was familiar with the music and I liked some of it. I didn't love any of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And but I've come to admire it more in retrospect. Like, like I didn't like. I liked a couple of Blur songs at the time, but I tried to listen to one album and it was too, like, you had to be British to get it, I think.
Really?
Almost. Yeah.
Really?
Like, cause it was it was so British referential.
Yeah.
It was Modern Life is Rubbish. Later on, Blur was influenced by like American indie rock, like Pavement and those kind of abrasive guitars, and they embraced that in the later 90s. But in the early 90s they were referencing like the Kinks and these very British kind of references that when I heard it, it was all lost on me. And
now, what
I
about
was just like, I don't like it.
Now, do you feel as though the Stone Roses are really kind of the genesis? That is the kind of like primordial ooze that all those bands came up out of?
For all of our British listeners out there, like, I apologize because you've got two like
people who really don't know anything about it.
Yeah, dumb American dudes trying to talk about Britpop and admitting that we don't really, we only know a surface level,
we're just naming bands.
Right, yeah, but the Stone Roses, no, I love the Stone Roses, the first album. It's a classic, and it definitely fed into Britpop, but it was a little different because it was more of the Manchester, the dancey rate, although I don't think that first album sounds particularly
dancey.
Manchester dancey. It's guitar,
it doesn't.
So I preferred the Stone Roses to either Blur or Oasis, but I've come around on Blur and Oasis and other, but Suede to get us back to Bernard Butler is a band that I've never made time for, and I have no excuse. There's lots of bands that fall through the cracks, so I don't. And I was aware that he also did like a run of his own. He put out solo albums, and they were well received, kind of critical darlings a little bit, so I was aware of his kind of sound generally, I guess, but not
I've got to say familiar. There was a at the radio station in college where we both worked. There was a woman whose name I cannot remember right now, but who was a Suede maniac. And I just, for some reason, I remember that she was just completely obsessed with Suede. I also I don't know that I've ever listened to a Suede album. Whereas Stoner, a lot of that stuff in and around that world, I probably liked at the time some of that stuff maybe a little bit better than you did, but it was never really exactly my favorite. But I've got to say, I did some reading about Bernard Butler because, notable person and some of the reviews and things that I had read about the album really kind of emphasized that he worked on it. I found the production on this record, the arrangements, the instrumentation, which primarily was Bernard Butler and Eitzel, right? They had a drummer named Mako Sakamoto play, and then they had a background vocalist named Tanya Malat. But other than that, it was just Eitzel and Bernard Butler. I have to say, I found it astonishingly good.
I agree. I was kind of pleasantly blown away. When I first put it on and the first song kicked in and that big of a production came out, and I was expecting something darker, just with the title, Hey, Mr. Ferryman, and coming off, Don't Be a Stranger. And I was expecting something darker, and the last 10 years is a very, I expected some kind of grim, the last 10 years, it's been really hard, I've been staring death in the face, and that kind of tone, and it was not. And I was kind of whoa, and I agree. I mean, I think this album at this moment in Eitzel's career is kind of what he needed. It's exactly what he needed. And I did a pretty deepish dive into the media surrounding the release of this album, because Eitzel did a whole slew of interviews, and a lot of them are still out there, and he talks about all kinds of stuff, as per usual. But it seems like he went into this album thinking they only had a budget, to do an acoustic, kind of similar to his previous releases. Did you read into the backstory at all of how this even came about?
No, I did not.
So the head of Decor Records, whose name I don't have handy, I guess his kid went to the same nursery school as Bernard Butler's kid, and they were both kind of house husbands a little bit, where they were picking up the kids at school and stuff, and they were talking, and the Decor Records guy said, hey, let me send you these demos that Eitzel's working on this album. Because I think, I assume Bernard Butler knew who Eitzel was, and maybe, recognized the name and was like, oh yeah, send those to me. And so he did, and Eitzel, they talked and decided they were going to work together. Eitzel said, I'm just going to do like an acoustic record because that's all we have budget for. But once they started, Bernard Butler was like, no, like, here's what we're going to do. It was in his studio, and it was recorded over an intense 10-day period. And, Bernard Butler just kind of took control of it and was like, we're adding this, like, we're going to make like an album. We're not doing like, an acoustic thing. We're going to make a big album. And Eitzel in the interviews says, I just sat back and let him do whatever he wanted to do, and, just shut up and let him work. And he made the album that I secretly wanted, but like had never.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so, and to me, it sounds like it, like I think Bernard Butler does an exceptional job of building the sound around Eitzel and his songs, and respects the songs, and plays to his strengths, and really, and I think Eitzel even says in a couple of the interviews, like a couple of the tracks, like he took this tiny kind of nugget of a song idea I had and turned it into this like epic, sweeping thing. So I was very pleasantly surprised to hear that level of production on the album.
Yeah, I have to say I'm in complete agreement. This record was interesting for me because when as I said in the last episodes, I was pleasantly surprised about Don't Be a Stranger. It is it is a more stripped down record, but it felt to me like an interesting move kind of away from the, on one hand, electronic, and on the other hand, more kind of adult contemporary jazzy loungy thing that he'd been doing for the bulk of his solo career. So I really was pleased that there was this somewhat more acoustic, somewhat more stripped down album that he did. I felt like it worked with the tone of the material. When I first put this album on, I was completely shocked, and I have to say I was disappointed. My first listen, because the last 10 years, we'll get into the specific track in a minute, but when it first starts, it is an incredibly poppy but soft rock kind of poppy tune.
Yeah. And
I just kind of was like, oh, fuck, he's back in the kind of adult contemporary mindset, and this is going to be a soft rock album that I'm not going to get into. And I felt mostly that the songs just didn't grab me for like one or two, maybe three listens. And then something clicked. And I have got to say, I got deeper and deeper and deeper into this album. And I was in complete agreement. I have got to believe that Butler is responsible for a good deal of this. I love his approach to the instrumentation and the arrangement for most of the songs on the record. I think his playing is really remarkable, and tasteful and just cool and different enough from what Eitzel's done in the past, even with AMC, that it sounds like a new thing, but somehow fits with the broader catalog, I think, a little bit better. But I also have to say, I think the songwriting on this album, kind of across the board, is tight, pop constructed songs that are like really feel complete, really feel like they're kind of done. And Eitzel's vocals on this album are the best in his career, and it isn't even close. I think that the vocals in here are really, really beautiful. He is much more confident as a singer, and I think that could be said for much of the later era stuff for logical reasons, right? But the tone and just kind of the pitch and the way he kind of like leans into the actual kind of hooks of these songs and doesn't kind of find his way into the melodies I thought was really impressive. And that affect that I think I was bitching about nonstop in the last episodes from Don't Be a Stranger is completely absent on this. It just, that was a one album thing. It's gone here. I'm super happy about it. Yeah. And he's found this like other, we've talked a lot about over the course of the season that he kind of has this, at some point in his career, he found this whispery kind of a tone that he uses to great effect. And then he also had the big bellowing kind of, more loungy, I guess, just bigger tone. There is a third sound that he gets on this, which is neither of those two. It's totally well-supported singing, but it's high, almost choir boy singing. Much higher register, and he nails those notes. You know what I mean? He's like, it really is he's a much better vocalist on this album.
Yeah, the singing, I mean, I would say, I've been a fan of his singing from the beginning,
Yeah, of course, and, right?
We've covered some of these albums that have been more like demos and whatnot, and sometimes those are a little bit more like warts and all, like he's not hitting everything solid. But I agree with you on this album. Like his singing is super strong. It's super solid. I don't know the technical details of like, what kind of microphone did they use and what kind of reverb did they use and did they double track and layer and do things that made, was it Bernard Butler's production, that helped enhance the vocals in some way?
Yeah.
Or, the vocals are just, naturally strong and good. I mean, I read that, he said that he wanted to get away from writing about like completely about like darkness, he was looking for something beautiful, in these songs. And I think he wanted them to sound good, and that's what Bernard Butler does well, and so it just kind of worked out perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that, like, again, we're probably not going to know how much of this to attribute to Butler. There's no question the singing, the songwriting is great. I think this is really, really solid. Great lyrics. We'll talk about that as we get into the individual songs. But the thing I was thinking is like, gosh, this album feels in many ways more connected to the AMC catalog than any of the other Eitzel solo albums to date. And it feels to me like a logical extension of where that catalog might have gone, if that makes sense, right? And
I think just the richness of the production and the full band sound, even though it is Bernard Butler doing a lot of the instrumentation himself, but it sounds like a full thing at times that evokes AMC. Yeah.
Like and it's a rock record.
Right. Yeah, it's not jazz or, cabaret, like it's a pop rock kind of thing. And I did find, because Eitzel in some of the interviews for this album specifically evokes AMC and says, that like he just wanted to make something natural and, like he didn't want to go for something esoteric and challenge himself, in some sort of sonic way. Like I'm going to dabble in some, different, I don't know, but so I think that it was a conscious, return to kind of like more pop rock territory. He even said in one interview, he said that people used to ask AMC if they would make a Bryan Adams record, and he was like, and we were like, yeah, we absolutely would. Like they had nothing against pop music, and they were trying to make their own kind of version of pop music, and that's what this album feels like, pop music, and so I think that's how it kind of draws it to AMC a little more.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, are you ready to move on to the track by track? I think it sounds like we're both excited to talk about this one. I am so happy that the last of the Eitzel studio albums that we're going to cover is like, we're as positive about it as we are. That was definitely my concern when we did the Rush season, Ralph and I was like, There's some real stinker albums, kind of late career, and they pulled out a classic as their last album together. I feel like Eitzel, he's on a similar trajectory. We're ending on an up note here for his solo catalog. So let's get into it.
All right.
Side A.
Yeah.
The last 10 years, 4 minutes and 18 seconds. Let's go. All right, J. William Hall, the last 10 years. What are we going to say about it? Why don't we cover the lyrics first? Do you want to tackle this?
Yeah. So,
okay.
I'm cheating a little bit because there was so much press around this album. I found, articles that were breaking down, with Eitzel, like Q&A.
Oh, wow.
And whatever. And so, a couple things he says about this song. He says he wrote the chorus about 20 years prior. Never forgot it. It was just always kicking around, and then he finally wrote verses for it. And he says really the song is about just going out and getting drunk.
Okay.
So the ferryman, in the song, the ferryman is the bartender. So basically it's the bartender leading the person from soberness to drunkenness, sort of as like the guide across the river,
Okay. All right.
And that's really what the whole metaphor of the song is. That's my interpretation based on his quotes.
Okay. So yeah, I definitely took from it that it is my interpretation absent that information was, he's talking about alcohol. He's reckoning with death, right? He's having a conversation with the ferryman. And I was taking that. I just like hiccuped and burped simultaneously while recording. So anyway, I took the ferryman like as less a metaphor for a bartender and more as a metaphor for death, as one would expect a ferryman to be. But
right.
it was clear that there was a lot of talking about alcohol in here. The line in the chorus is really evocative. I spent the last 10 years trying to waste a half an hour, and I puzzled over that, trying to figure out what could he possibly mean. I never really came up with anything, but it's a very memorable lyrical bit.
Yeah, there's another good line. I've never been to hell, but they've got my number. Which I thought was a funny line. But my interpretation based on the this is a guy at a bar. He's just trying to kill time, and that's what he's been doing for the last 10 years. That was sort of my take on that. But so are we getting into the production?
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into the music. Let's get into the production.
One of the reasons that this song hit me, I think, so kind of strongly and as pleasantly as it did, is I have to give you the context in which I've been listening to these albums. Usually, I leave my house at 7 a.m. and I catch the bus to go downtown to my job. And it's dark. And it's been getting colder, and some of these Eitzel solo albums, listening to in the dark on the bus, riding downtown at 7 a.m. It's a little bit grim. It's been a little bit of a grim ride sometimes, and so I was fully expecting okay, here we go. I'm gonna get in this headspace here, going to work. And this came on, and the production is so bright and poppy and full, and it was what I needed in that moment,
Yeah, it has a can you help me level of brightness to it.
Yeah, definitely, probably the brightest, poppiest thing he's done in his solo career, at least since West. I can't. I'm trying to think. There may have been one or two on West that were kind of, big pop songs, but yeah, Can You Help Me would have been the AMC equivalent, I think. Like, and they pull it off great. Like, it's catchy, it's produced perfectly, it's ear candy, you know.
But this song is really the song that I was like, when on those first listens, I was like, ooh, this is going to be too adult contemporary. Because I was
ready for it. I was like, yes, bring it on.
See, it's. I think it's an extremely well executed pop song. I don't have a quibble with the production or anything, but it's bright and poppy. And as the opener, it really, you know, Can You Help Me is not the opener of that album. It's kind of,
right.
You know, whatever. It's pretty deep in there. So it doesn't set the tone for your full album listen in the way that this song does.
True.
And frankly, I just think this song set the tone. It set a tone that the rest of the album doesn't deliver on. But there are some things in here.
Yeah,
there's some things in here. Right? Like this is probably the poppiest, most upbeat song on the album. Mm-hmm. And so if you hear this first song and you're expecting a lot more of the same, you're not going to get it. And for me, that was a good thing. But but there are some things in here, like, you know, that when I heard them on those first few listens, I was like actually laughing about it because it was they fully went into that. Like the background vocals are so interesting and so different than anything you've heard with Eitzel before, where you have this kind of female voice, chorus of female voices just kind of oohing in the background. Really, really interesting. Very polished, but struck me as like, whoa. And then there's, in I think the third verse, there's these claps come in that are almost like the claps in the Friends theme, you know, where it's like, you know, like there are these like funny claps in it that are just really, you know, almost Cardigans level of like sheen and poppiness to it. And I liked the song. I was just a little worried that like, oh, if this is going to be everything on here, this may be a little too much for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been. That would have been maybe too much of a shock to do an entire album of upbeat pop, like, you know, but to me, it hit like a breath of fresh air, kind of, you know, and you know, and I'm glad, but I agree with you. I'm glad he didn't do the whole album at this level of pop sheen.
Now,
but
I will say one of my favorite things about this song is the way it starts, because it starts in a very odd way. There's like these like weird kind of not atonal but arrhythmic like swells that happen, and there's maybe one bar of that. It's quite kind of esoteric. And then it just kind of kicks into this pop song. So it's really jarring in a strange way when that hits. It kind of hits you, it like faints to the right, and then you get slammed with the left.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I assume, you know, maybe that was a Bernard Butler kind of thing, but he feels like a producer that has really good taste, you know, like, like he knows how to sprinkle like just a little bit of, you know, this and that, because it's like it is a very slick pop kind of sounding thing, but it's got enough little edge to it here and there sonically, and I think like that intro, you know, especially as an album opener, is you know, it's a good way to get your attention, kind of like, you know, because I'm standing at the bus stop in the dark and put in my, you know, headphones and, you know, start to listen, and that first thing came up and it sounded a little dark, menacing, creepy. Yeah. You know, and then this pop
weird.
song
It's weird.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I liked it. You know, a little curveball.
I love that opening. I will say that probably my biggest criticism of this one, honestly, and this is going to be, unfortunately, we're going to have to start beating this drum. It fades out in a very lazy way. And because that intro is so weird, I found myself thinking like, gosh, why couldn't they have just gone back to that intro somehow at the end, you know, like somehow end the song and then like do that thing again? Cause it would just, I don't know. It's like the intro part was interesting, but you never come back to it. You know what I mean? And then they just, you know, kind of let's just fade it, which I don't like. So that's probably my one gripe. Not a huge gripe, but my one gripe with this one.
Yeah, there are a couple of songs that have kind of like almost like a sudden sort of skid out fade on this album that just kind of like it, they didn't have an ending, so they just kind of just skidded out and brought it down. This is one of them.
It definitely has the feel of an album that a lot of this stuff, a lot of these choices, and probably a lot of the arrangement happened in studio. Right. Like, and I think that's, again, one of my beefs about the fade out is it's a thing that can only happen in studio. And it just feels like,
you can do the live fade.
You can do the live
fade.
You can do the live fade, but I don't think it's easy to execute. All right. So listen, are you ready to move on to track 2 and answer?
Yes.
Okay. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Let's give it a listen.
And you're always on my mind. I just can't leave you behind. You make me wanna stick around and find if there's an answer.
Okay, J. William Hall. There it is. An answer. Lyrics. I want to dig into this one a little bit. I just thought these were, you had mentioned up front that you had read that Eitzel was really looking for just some beautiful things to write about. He didn't want to have kind of like a monolithically dark album, which is probably the knock on Eitzel. One of the knocks on Eitzel over the course of his career, right?
Right. And the other thing that he wanted to get away from, he said in the interviews, was like these super confessional style lyrics.
Yeah.
He just wanted to write things that were going to be beautiful, and he also is coming off having worked in various capacities or with these theater groups, or he's been doing theater music, and it gave him a more kind of like objective view of songwriting in general, and I think like made him feel like he didn't need to write these super personal, super heavy confessional things all the time. And so I think we'll see this throughout the album, where he is kind of like, I think, singing from almost more of a character point of view. However, this particular song, I don't know that this is a character, but it's just a very lovely love song about about dancing with your lover in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And, I really love the turn of phrase of the chorus. You're always on my mind. I just can't leave you behind. You make me want to stick around and find if there's an answer. It doesn't say what the question is exactly, but it's just like almost this, this open, like an answer to everything, and somehow it's in you and me and love. And, so it's a beautiful, beautiful lyric, beautiful song.
Yeah. The one line that really popped out for me in this one is, dancing's the only thing I do right as long as we keep it nice and slow, which I just think is so Eitzel. It, like, everything is wrapped up in there. It is self-deprecating, right? Mm-hmm. It is yearning for love, and it's also kind of, it's like very relatable. You know what I mean? Like, you can totally imagine, like, oh yeah, I'm a great dancer as long as it's slow dancing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think is like a very kind of white guy thing to, expression to have. I don't know. I just really like I just love that line. Just so human. You know what I mean? Just so human. I love these. They're very sweet.
There's still a hint of darkness.
Yeah.
For sure. Like Eitzel, I think, I forget if it was this song or a different one, where he said, like, it's one of the gooeyest things that he's written, or corniest, whatever. And, but then there are lines like, don't know how I got so broken. If you want to leave, what can I say?
Yeah.
Sing a hymn for all things left unspoken, which is such a poetic, turn of phrase. A song called Dance the Night Away, and, It's like it's such a simple kind of like little line, but I feel like all of the verses in this are really well crafted, and you can tell that, this isn't just some tossed off idea,
Yeah.
And I mean, also bearing testament to that is there's an alternate version of this song that apparently I don't know what the origin of it is. Did you catch that one?
I did not. No, I did not.
There's an alternate version that's on, I think, like the Spotify version of this album, maybe some other digital ones, and it's like,
oh no, you know what? I did listen to it. I'm sorry, I did. It is the 12th track on the version of the album that I was listening to.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like it was described as a bonus song or something, but it's more of a rock, or like straight ahead kind of like rock beat kind of version of this song. But the version on the album, track 2, is much more cinematic almost. Like it's not just like a straightforward drumming kind of thing,
Yeah, no, I mean, this is, if you want to move on to the music, this is like extremely polished and extremely poppy. And again, as I said to you before, like my first one or two listens to the album, these two songs up front, while I think this is a lovely song with beautiful lyrics, it is very poppy, right? And I really was kind of like
big soaring chorus, and I think like Bernard Butler's production, he's really doing those string swells, I don't know if it's a keyboard or if it's actual strings, but it sounds like orchestral kind of swells like into the chorus, and lifting everything like that. And it's very like pop, big pop.
Yeah, and the drums come in the third verse on this one, and that starts to give it a little bit of edge. But this is mostly just kind of a very sweet, very smooth pop song. I would say the two other things that I noted here, there is a proper bridge in this song, and as we've kind of gotten almost the entire way through the studio catalog of Eitzel, he doesn't write a lot of proper traditional bridges, right? Like he does songs that are verse chorus, the verse chorus bridge type thing, but he doesn't do a lot of it. And there is kind of a traditional bridge on this, which I just thought was kind of interesting, and it speaks to the what I like about the songwriting on this album, which is it is his more traditional kind of almost Nashville style songwriter side. He's got that side and he's got the other side, but this is an example of that side.
More traditionally structured pop structures. Yeah.
Exactly. And again, my kind of one quibble, the only place on this album where I detected that vocal affect that bothered me so much on "Don't Be a Stranger" is in this song. And there's only one incident of it here. Okay.
Well, that didn't bother me so much on "Don't Be a Stranger," and I didn't note it here. I thought his singing was good.
Okay.
Real good singing in that.
All right, so should we move on to track 3, The Road?
Yes.
Okay, The Road, 5 minutes and 21 seconds. Let's give it a listen.
Staying true, trust in every side, and we know there's no end. There's no end to the road.
Okay, J. William Hall, I've got to say, this to me, lyrically, really reads just like the classic rock and roll, The Road is Hard song, perhaps most accurately captured by Tenacious D in the song "The Road." I believe it's called "The Road," but I don't know if you know it.
Theirs is a cover of this, right? Or is this a cover of theirs?
The lyrics that I remember from that song, the Tenacious D song, are "The road is fucking tough," and the whole song is just this kind of like very funny satire of the classic road song, right?
See, my mind immediately goes to, "They say that the road is no place to start
exactly."
a family. You know,
Wanted Dead or Alive. I've seen a million faces and I've rocked them all.
Yeah,
you know?
and Eitzel is no stranger to road songs, right?
Yeah, he's had some road songs.
Hello
for sure.
Amsterdam is kind of a road song.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, so it's a subject that he has touched upon before.
So I kind of had this vibe that it was maybe specifically about like looking back at the AMC years, or it may just be generically like this is who he is. He is like a road musician, and that's kind of this is the story he tells about that.
So I found an article
Okay.
that says the song is drawn from Eitzel watching a touring band play for 4 people at a bar in Denton, Texas a few years ago. And Eitzel says, "It wasn't my kind of music, but they played their guts out anyway. You really have to love a touring band. You spend 23 hours trying to make 1 hour where time doesn't matter." So he, you know, I think it was undoubtedly informed by his experiences, you know, with AMC and his solo on the road, like being a touring musician. But that's absolutely what the song's about.
Yeah, and I love the line in here towards the end of the song. "We lost the war to win a fight."
Yes. And what is the line that's about? We're soldiers proud who still believe the war is worth the friends we leave.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, great. Some great lyrics in here, and I will say that, you know, the what you had said earlier about Eitzel kind of intentionally trying to do songs that were a little less kind of diary, you know, confessional songs, and a little bit more, you know, maybe broadly applicable. I think this is a great example. He executes the song as well, or nearly the lyrics as well, or nearly as well as any of the confessional stuff in the catalog. Works really, really well, relates something super meaningful. I really like these lyrics, but I've got to say, the music, this is the moment in the album where I was like, oh fuck, this is not what I thought it was going to be from the first 2 tracks. There are so many little things in this that I just love. There is this great Bernard Butler. I don't want to say that it sounds like the Johnny Greenwood Creep electric guitar chunk, but he does do this little electric guitar chunk that, like, it comes in and you're like, wait a second. The first time you hear it, you're like, wait a second, what was that? It doesn't seem like that this is that kind of song. And then he does it again, like 1 bar later, and then kind of the guitar, and you're like, oh man, this is like a rock song.
Yeah. This is a song that becomes epic kind of as it goes on.
Totally.
It's sort of slow. It's a slow builder. And I think that that's kind of a formula that he uses on a number of songs on this album. The guitar playing on this album has a certain swanky kind of quality to it, like this lead guitar swanky, you know, like, and I think that's intentional because that, you know, he, especially knowing that the song was inspired by some, you know, rock band kind of giving it their all in a bar playing for nobody, you know, and so I felt like Bernard Butler, and I'm not super familiar with his whole catalog if he always plays like this, but this felt a little bit not like a parody, but like, you know, he was just pouring a little bit of extra swank sauce on it just to like, you know, like just to, I mean, not getting in the way of anything though. Like, I mean, you know, the production and the playing, everything's like very balanced and not interfering with the central thing, which is Eitzel's vocal, you know? The other production touch I love on this is when the whole song near the end kind of drops out and you think it's over. Several seconds go by, and then it kicks in with like this kind of gnarly sounding coda, and I was like, like I think this is one of the highlights of the album, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I love, to your point about the song building. The build is so nice, and I it's either in verse 2 or verse 3. Verse 2. When the bass comes in and there's that really kind of cool moving bass line, really, really nice. I loved it. I
think Bernard Butler did bass and guitars. He
played bass and guitar.
I mean, you can tell Eitzel plays acoustic on a lot of the album, but like beyond that, I think I assume it was Bernard Butler doing all the other guitar work.
Yeah, and it's really cool in here. And I think the last thing that I'd kind of like mention about this song is it has this. I was having a difficult time articulating it, and the only word I could come up with was sourness, or tenseness. There's some tenseness in the musical tenseness in the verses that gets released really nicely. It's not just a build, there's like a tone shift. Somehow it feels like during the verses the song coils up and then it releases in the chorus. Which I don't know. I thought this was in my opinion, I thought this was on side A. I'm not going to say it was the best song on side A until we get through the rest of side A, but it was a highlight for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I immediately enjoyed the first two songs more than you immediately did. So I was like hearing strength upon strength, So I was pretty struck by this song just as sort of like something a little bit different than the first two, brava, Mr. Butler, Mr. Eitzel.
Yeah, really, really great one. All right, let's move on to Nothing and Everything. 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Let's go.
The night falls like a chain, nothing and everything takes the blood from your vein, nothing and everything.
Okay, so J. William Hall, the lyrics on this one, these are some pretty dark lyrics. Maybe the darkest lyrics of the album so far.
Right.
I wasn't completely sure what to take away from this. It felt to me as though it was one of the songs that I think we've heard over the course of his career. Eitzel has written these very sympathetic songs that are almost defensive of women that he feels like are put upon in some way, right? There's been quite a few of those over the course of the catalog. It felt to me like that's what this is. I assumed a woman in some kind of abusive relationship, but it was very unclear to me what exactly the dimensions of that relationship were.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally what I took away from it too, and also noted that like this is in a series of songs that he's written that have this kind of like perspective of, taking that woman's side and kind of describing the situation. But I likewise, I'm not sure if this is just a character study, he had somebody specific, or I don't know. I didn't read or find any articles that really spelled it out like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, no, I think good lyrics overall, but definitely darker, pretty descriptive, relatable.
Yeah, this is a song that was kind of like harkens back to Don't Be a Stranger, or
Chanel No. 5,
Yeah, but I mean, even the tone, like the music, because this is like,
we're
going like, we're back to like Eitzel finger picking acoustic and voice. It starts very somber, but the thing that Bernard Butler brings to this song, I mean, it's not just acoustic and voice. Like he builds it slowly, very subtly. The backing vocals, like on this song and throughout the album, I forget there's one singer that's named in the credits but I have a feeling
Tanya Malat, Tanya Malat. I don't know if I'm spelling the last name right. It's Melotte. And all I was able to find is she is a Northern Irish singer who has had a couple of bands, but doesn't appear as though any of the bands are like super well known.
Okay.
But yeah, there is a woman, Northern Irish woman.
Well, Miss Malat, maybe she's a friend of Mr. Butler's. We don't know, but her voice combined with sounds like strings, but it might be a synth of some kind or whatever. But it's super effective throughout the album, and they really like this song in particular. It almost sounds like a hymn. It almost sounds like a church hymnal kind of thing. I mean, obviously the subject matter is not what you typically hear in a hymn, but it has that vibe to it, and that again is something different, so far on the album from the previous songs.
Yeah, I've got to say that I definitely agree with that. But the most remarkable thing musically about this one for me is Eitzel's vocal. This is the first incidence of that kind of choir boy vocal that I've never heard from Eitzel before. And it is so like crisp, just unapologetically pretty, like no edge to it. You know what I mean? It is just a very pretty, higher vocal performance for him. I loved it because I didn't think he had this in him. You know what I mean? It's just a completely different tone than I've heard from him in the entire catalog, and I really like it. I think combined with the background vocals and the much more kind of, to your point, like chamber music-y kind of a feel to the song, very Nick Drake kind of feel to the song, right?
Yeah.
I just thought it worked really, really well, and so nice to hear a side of a musician who you've spent, coming up on 50 episodes listening to their entire catalog of work over 30 years to completely surprise you with a different side of themselves that really works well.
I do wonder if his experiences with these theater productions that he's been working on, like how they've impacted his musicality. Like, because not that I would, immediately be like, oh, this vocal sounds like a theater vocal of some kind. But, like when you go to see like a musical, on stage or whatever, and the singers are really doing the, like the vibrato kind of, style singing. And I mean, and this one isn't in like a operatic Pavarotti kind of way, but it's just like quiet. But, I feel on this album, like you can hear that sort of vibrato a little bit quality to his vocals. Like, maybe his style of singing is just matured and has been altered a little bit by, being around theater versus rock clubs.
Yeah. And I think that the vocal lines in here, frequently Eitzel vocal lines, we've talked about this in the past, it feels as though he finds his way to the melody that he likes in that moment. Right. But it isn't always like, it doesn't feel to me like it's repeatable sometimes. Does that make sense? Like even he doesn't sing it the same way every time. And it's just kind of happens when it happens. And then maybe he'll go back to a chorus where it's like the chorus is pretty repeatable. But these songs by and large feel like many of the melodies are things you could kind of transcribe onto, a musical staff, and it would actually hold. You know what I mean? It just feels like,
like other singers could sing them,
exactly,
and do it, as opposed to some other of his songs where it's like you could only hear Eitzel sing that song,
Yeah, exactly. I loved this song. I thought this was really lovely, really simple. I wouldn't say it's one of the highlights on the album for me, but it is definitely additive to the album. It's a very different tone than the, I guess, 3 songs that we've heard before it. on this side. Really good. I'm a fan.
I will say that I
It
felt
does
like
have a
it
fade
lost
out,
a little
though.
energy. It lost a little energy.
It did, but I think that's my opinion. I think that's appropriate at this point in the album. He kind of starts off with what I would consider a very very, very, very poppy song, and then an answer which is not as upbeat, but it is equally poppy. It's very
sweeping,
almost melodramatic, right? Then the road, you get into this kind of like, energy building tense rocker, which is really interesting. It feels to me like it's kind of time to just take a step back and, nice quiet song. I liked that part of the track listing.
Well, where could he go next?
Well, we're going to find out when we listen to the final song on side A of this album. An angel's wing brushed the penny slots. 4 minutes and 8 seconds. Let's go.
She prayed and prayed to that weeping one who kept her mouth on the mouth of her gun. Those tears that leave you to rot, drip by drip, drop by drop.
Okay, J. William Hall. Maybe it's because I spent a brief period of time, couple years, designing slot machines. I know.
Yes.
Surprising. But it happened. Many, many, many years ago.
Shit happened.
But the lyrics to this one really, really transported me. I loved these lyrics. And this is a total story character song, right? It feels to me like there's nothing of Eitzel. This is not confessional in any way, but these lyrics worked for me as well as any on the album. One lyric that I want to highlight: she prayed and prayed to the weeping one who kept her mouth on the mouth of a gun.
Dark.
So much dark, but like. The way the words flow in there, she prayed and prayed, right? The repetition of pray in the beginning of that sentence, and then kept her mouth on the mouth of a gun, repetition of mouth in a kind of an interesting way at the end of the sentence. It's just I am not like a written poetry fan generally, but this really, that's just beautiful poetry right there.
So is your interpretation, first of all, I did not ever work in the gambling world. I'm not a gambler by nature. That may surprise
then you
some
have
of
no right to discuss this song, Jay William.
I had no idea what the title meant. I understand now you're talking about a slot machine, right?
Yeah.
But maybe can you lay out, like, is it just somebody feeling lucky in the casino? Like, what's going on?
No, okay. I can go over my interpretation of this. So the El Cortez, my recollection is that the El Cortez used to be a casino in Vegas.
Okay.
I didn't verify that, but that was when I was listening to the song, that was my recollection. And my recollection further was that the El Cortez, you've been to Las Vegas, I'm guessing, yes?
Briefly, and never to the casinos.
You know what? We're going to have to go one of these days. It's quite an experience.
I'm not your man. I would be the worst person to take to casino. I'd be so boring.
Well, so the El Cortez, there's kind of in Vegas, there are kind of two kinds of casinos. And in the casino industry, they used to call, I don't know if they could do it now, they used to call them locals and tourist casinos. The locals casinos tend to be more down market, not as glitzy, and they tend to have mostly slot machines and penny slot machines, which basically are cheaper to play, and they're video slot machines, right? As opposed to like the mechanical slot machines.
Okay.
With the actual physical reel that spins. And And the locals casinos, mostly what you see, I don't want to say exclusive, mostly what you see is like older people who will go in there, and that's kind of the afternoon's entertainment. They'll put $20 into one of these machines and they'll play for a couple hours, right? And so my interpretation of what's happening in this song is that there is a guy, there's the kind of like narrator of this song who whose wife, I interpreted his wife as being religious, and that's the weeping one I assumed was Mary, right? So I had this image of a man's wife who was religious and killed herself. And since then, he's still alive, but he's kind of aimless, and so he just goes to the El Cortez and plays slot machines and drinks, okay? And then, effectively, what happens is the bulk of the kind of narrative in here is that he sees an angel.
Okay.
He has a vision of an angel while he's sitting there in the El Cortez. And he is unsure, the narrator is unsure what exactly happened, but I think what you get at the end of the song is that he's died while sitting there in the El Cortez playing slot machines, which I am certain has happened many times based on in locals casinos, right? But he died in there and like is basically saying, hey, if this is death, it's not so bad. I'm still in the El Cortez and I get free drinks. And now I'm going to be lucky because this angel kind of anointed me with her luck. And that's more or less the story. This guy kind of, after his wife dies, is hanging out in the El Cortez and is now effectively a ghost in the El Cortez.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very sad short story is kind of what it is. But I mean, not entirely sad though. Like there's sort of a weird, it's positivity to it.
Yeah, it doesn't read as super sad. It's kind of on one level just the basic thing that led him to be in the El Cortez. That's quite sad. Yeah. But the rest of it is this. I don't want to say it's funny, but it's not entirely sad. You know what I mean? It's kind of
It's kind of like. He found a version of heaven. He died and went to a version of heaven or something,
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, it is, but I think for me, the thing that I liked about these lyrics so well is it just is a total story song. It feels to me as though there's nothing of Eitzel autobiographically in this at all. And these lyrics work for me once again just as well as the bulk of his catalog, the more autobiographical stuff. I didn't feel let down by the fact this wasn't Eitzel bloodletting himself, basically.
Right? Yeah. Like I agree, and I think what's evident in this song too, and the reason why I was like, there's a weird positivity. I think it's just that there's humor. Like he has some really funny lines in this song, like. The angel brushes the penny slots and he says, I tried to rise to her, but the carpet I caught, so that's like he falls over dead. And, he says, guess if you die on their floor, then all the drinks are free. It's like, there's just like some funny little things woven in there that I think, lighten the overall tone, but, certainly, you open with introducing a guy whose wife committed suicide. Like that's pretty dark.
Yeah. Now, moving on to the music, I will say this is I think this is probably the strangest song musically on the album. And probably the song, while I love the melody and I love the lyrics, I do think the musical aesthetic, in my opinion, probably fits least well on the album than any of the other songs.
Yeah, this is a little bit of an oddball. Maybe, I don't know if undercooked is the right word, but doesn't feel as fully rounded out or something.
Yeah, it's exclaim your joy, kind of. You know what I mean? It's in and of itself, I like it, but it does stick out on the album, right? Mm-hmm. Or proclaim your joy. Proclaim your joy, I guess is the song. It has this very kind of, obviously intentionally kind of primitive drum loop. That's the background, and that's what starts the song. And so you're kind of like, whoa, that's, this is decidedly lo-fi after the rest of the this side of the album. And
I have to wonder if that was like from Eitzel's demo or something. It does sound like just this canned kind of bossa nova Casio sort of thing, and I felt it was a little distracting. It was mixed too high or something. But it's a little different. But hey, he's throwing curves. I didn't curveballs.
There was a lot that, like, on paper, I could say that I didn't really love about this one. That kind of bossa nova, like, rhythm to the song, I don't love. Although that has been popping up lately in his music. I didn't love that drum loop, and I felt the keyboard was a little bit strange. But in the end, I have to say I like this song. I interpreted it as a little bit of Eitzel in that Tom Waits mode that we've heard a few times recently, but just not the same kind of musical colors in that mode, right? Like he doesn't have the kind of calliope playing in the background or anything that makes it really circusy. It's a different kind of vibe, but it did have that. I got a little bit of that Waitsy thing.
Yeah, it's flute. It's more like flute sounds, I think, on this one. But it's definitely a different sound than anything on the album. But I think it evokes more of his cabaret period, if you will.
Yeah, agreed. Well, listen, J. William Hall, I can't even believe it, but that's it. We are through side A. That means we're through this episode. It went flying by for me.
Just like the album, it flew by in a flash.
That's right. So we are going to be back next week to cover side B. Until then, everybody, there's just a few things you need to do. You need to go to Instagram. You need to go to Twitter. You need to go to Reddit. We can be found there at Backtracking Rocks ROX. Follow us. Do all the things.
Most modern web browsers will allow you to open them in 3 tabs. Side by side. Open them up. You start in the one. You do what you need to do there. Backtracking Rocks, ROX. Then you go to the other. Then you go to the other. You like, you comment, you share, you upvote, I don't know what else you can do in these places. I don't go there myself, but that's, I've heard good things. I've heard that they're all good.
You do it all. You do it all. So, and then also, obviously, please just send us an email. backtrackingrocksrox@gmail.com. We will be back next week to deliver you all of the things that you want related to side B of this Mark Eitzel album. So, as always, thank you for tuning in. As always, J. William Hall, thank you.
No, Dan, thank you.
No, really. It's the time of giving thanks, and I want to give my thanks to you.
When I sit around the Thanksgiving table here in the United States for our overseas listeners, we've got the turkey, we've got the stuffings, we've got the mashed potatoes, we've got some people like their cranberry sauce, some people, they like all kinds of breads and muffins. I would also like to introduce Backtracking to your Thanksgiving celebrations. Just put it on in the background, listen while you eat with the family. We're family too. Hey, we're all family here, right? When you hear your family, you think that should be our slogan?
Is that the Olive Garden slogan, I believe?
I'm just, it's a paraphrase.
I know.
I'm just paraphrasing.
I don't think we can steal the Olive Garden slogan. I mean, I'm not certain about
They're just
that.
words. They're just words. No one owns words.
All right, we will be back. As always, well, I already did the thank you. That's how we got here. So that's it. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Just like that. Bye.